name's Colleen and I'm the Curriculum Manager for Health Education here at New College Durham. We're going to take you a tour of our facilities so you can see how we deliver T-levels. So we're very lucky here at New College Durham. We've got 2 6-bed wards, which obviously for the delivery of T-level is really essential. You'll see also that we've got an interactive sim that we use quite a lot in our teaching. Also, if you look up at the ceiling, you'll see we've got cameras, and I would say for delivery of ESP or the assessment window, it's really imperative that you have a good setup for recording of all the elements of the employer set project. We also have a mobile camera that we utilise, so we can take it into other areas if we want to do that. Various other pieces of equipment you can see related to anatomy and physiology. We also deliver midwifery here, hence the baby, so the developing baby. We also are very lucky in that we have some useful storage in the back of the room. We have C-touch screens in every room as well, so that we can deliver both from the front and the practical elements of the course. So a lot of what we do, we'll set up different elements so that the students can just rotate around them. So for example, we might have one group who are looking at blood pressure, we might have somebody else who is looking at peak flow and they might move around, or we might set it up with different case study scenarios and they might move around a carousel from that point of view as well. And obviously 2 sides helps quite a lot. Quite often we might only have 1, but if we're running a big, if we've got a lot of people in, we might have 2 in at the same time, just depends. The students, once they've been on the ward a few times, they know the routine, they know what's expected of them, and we're very clear on the behaviours that are expected when they're here on the ward. So for instance, they'll come in, they put on their, totally forgotten the word there. Tunics, yes. We come in, they'll put on their tunics, they'll tie the hair up, and they know that when they come in, there's certain behaviours that are expected of them. So they don't need a lot of interaction from staff once it's set up. It's really important that you set it up carefully and they understand the rules before they come in and they know what's expected of them, and then it just runs really well. Okay, so this is our other ward. Again, we've got 6 beds in here. We have more sims of varying ages, you'll notice, that we use a lot. So we'll use a lot around personal care, things like bed bathing, practicing their softer skills, their communication skills, how would they talk to a patient, how might they tell a patient that, that they've come to give them a bed bath, are they okay with that, are they happy? It can be very difficult for young people to get those skills. We assume that they will have those skills. And for some, it's just about developing their confidence, running through various scenarios, and practice, I suppose, so that when they do go out into industry placement, they're well prepared.
Do you use any previous scenarios that have been in past?
Yes, always. We use them quite a lot. So we have, in the way we deliver now, we have a session where they're just working on the skills around ESP. So we'll use scenarios that have happened in the past, we'll look at them. We have them developing their own scenarios based on the scenarios we've already got. So we've got a bit of a bank going on now. It gives them the opportunity to look at different conditions that patients might have, but also really focus on the person-centred care. So it's so essential.
Do you ever use scenario time in here to reflect on real experiences that they've had on placement, almost to be able to...
Probably be more, yes, we probably would do that, but we're less likely to do it on the ward and more likely to do it in the classroom. So if we're delivering, for example, I teach for the ESP, so we've got 4 first-year groups, I have 3 hours of each of those groups, and everything we do is based around developing their skills for the ESP. So it might be talking about what's happened in their placement. Obviously, they understand about confidentiality, so they're very good about making sure that you don't know who it is that they're talking about, or even most people won't know what setting they're in. And we'll discuss maybe things that they've seen, stuff that they might have been involved with, how they've felt about that. We spend a lot of time developing their reflection. They really struggle. It's something young people really struggle with, reflective practice, so we've started really early doors with that. And they have opportunities to reflect on real life things that have happened in placement, which are much better than having them reflect on classroom-based scenarios, because that's very difficult to do, I think.
And so how many students do you have across years 1 and 2, 40 level health?
So we've got 133 altogether. That's made up of adult nursing, midwifery in our first year is the biggest cohort this year, and we've also just brought on mental health for this academic year as well, and that's quite a small group at the moment, but we're hoping to grow that.
And do all the different groups use these 2 ward spaces?
Yeah, so all of the groups. So in the first year, as I'm sure most people are aware, they all cover the same curriculum, and all of the groups will be in here, which obviously is a logistical nightmare from the person who has to write the timetables, namely me. So the timetabling can be challenging, especially as we want our second years to spend as much time as possible on the wards. So we make sure that our first years get time there, and we timetable everybody into the ward, so everybody will have been on the ward on a weekly basis. But we also have to make sure that our second years get enough time on the ward, because a lot of what they do is practical. Yeah, so we've got the hoist in here, and they do manual handling. Some of them they'll have training for manual handling in their settings, depending on where they go. We have really good relationship with Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, so they will come in and support us as well through like the induction process. In terms of manual handling, we're in the process of training one of our teachers, so we're thinking that we're going to have one of our teachers who will then be able to deliver the manual handling as well. Just as our cohorts get bigger, it makes more sense to have somebody on staff than having to rely on people coming in, because sometimes you have to wait quite a while to get them into in for a training slot. We also have first aid, which sometimes we might do elements of that on the ward. So they will have a first aid qualification when they leave as well. So this little room at the back was originally built as part of optical, but we've had a bit of a change of direction. And midwifery is very, very popular. So we're going to set up this little room at the back as a birthing pool. So we're going to have a birthing pool in there, which we're really excited about, particularly our 2 midwives on staff are very excited about that. And then this area here is going to be set up as a clinic. So that's kind of our plan going forward. So we're quite excited about that. So you can see that this room is quite a large room, but equally this wall comes back, and we can have like a double room. So if you have guest speakers in, it means you've got the opportunity to have a lot more students in at one time, which should be really useful.
And how much theory are you teaching in these classrooms?
Quite a lot. So there's a lot of content to get through, which I'm sure anybody who's delivering would understand. But we also try to do a lot of scenario-based teaching. So although we might be delivering new concepts, etc., we're then trying to apply it straight away as well, so that you just get that deeper learning and understanding. And then we'll take that into the ward sometimes as well.
So you've got quite a lot of linking in between the theory that
Yeah.
you're teaching into the practical.
All the way through. I think it's the only way you can deliver this kind of course is if you're doing that. I'd set them a task based around a scenario, and they can come out and work here, and they really love to do that. So they'll come out in the little groups, just sit in the little pods and work on a task, and then we'll sometimes all go around this table here, and they'll just feed back from there. So they like to do that.
So they're getting that time to practice that group work.
Yeah.
And that reflective time as well.
Yeah, so they do a lot of group work. We do a lot of group work. There's a lot of they work with everybody in their group as well. So I think that's really important. So we don't just put them into one group and leave them there. Over the course of the 2 years, they'll work with every single person in their group to make sure that they're used to working with all kinds of different people, because obviously you have to do that in the real world, don't you? So
when they get into year 2 and they're doing their specialisms, are they sort of like streamed into their specialisms, or do they ever kind of mix to talk to each other about their experience?
they haven't yet. They haven't they do talk to each other, because we've got friends who are on courses, and they talk to each other about the things that they're doing. But this is really our first year of midwifery going into the second year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what value they can bring to each other. And we might sort of later on towards the end, when we're starting to practice for the second year assessments, we might start to mix and match, so we've got some audiences for practicing as well, and just to give some peer feedback, because it's always really useful. So if they come in and do any practicals, particularly around things like anatomy and physiology, we've got one of our teachers who does like dissections and things with them, and they really enjoy it. And of course, because we've got the facilities, they can do that.
And so you've got a mixture of teachers who can teach on the science?
We do. So we have 3 of our teachers who will teach 2 who will teach purely the science and 1 who teaches across Core A and Core B, which is really useful because 2 of them are from a science background, so it's very science orientated, and then we have Rachel who delivers from a more of a midwifery background, so they get the best of both worlds really.
So they get to have lots of practical time
Yeah.
in here to kind of bring science to life.
Yeah, well, it's the best way really to teach, isn't it, with science, because for the type of learners that we have who are really interested in health and not as interested in science, we need to make it very relevant for them and relate it to the human.
So we can put anything on the walls, and Google YouTube 360 is one of the best actually. So I tend to look up.
So you could have your case study or scenario on the wall, and then you could have something going on around.
Yeah. So this one's about the development of baby's eyes. And so it's actually looking from the actual perspective of the baby. So that's why it's blurry, but it's a 10-minute video, it gets more colour, and so obviously you can just make out a dog, and it clicks in, so it's teaching the students about how babies develop and things like that.
It's really useful so that they understand what a baby can and can't say.
Yes.
So.
And also impact risk assessment, it really lends itself really well for risk assessments and that room audit. So the idea is we've just purchased a 360 camera, so we can go into the ward over there and in theory trash it. We can put GDPR leaflets on the floor so there's patient records everywhere on the wall. We can put fake blood, fake feet.
Only if you want to get into trouble.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
And feces and stuff. But you do it once and you film it, and then you put it in here. So therefore you don't have to. So therefore we can load that up and just say, right, students come in here with a checklist and they note down how many hazards they can spot, and that's the audit. Rather than having to go into Colleen and Alison's and Mel's room and doing it. The WOW video is all well and good, but how much learning is actually going on? It'll remember it, but in terms of assessment, the formative assessment, maybe you're going to start, you pause it and you talk about certain things, that's great, but then you move baby back to the classroom. Whereas in here, I want to turn it to a classroom so you can go around and you've got your PowerPoints and the various elements, because we all create PowerPoint, and it's got loads of elements in it, video, audio, maps, images, government documentation. What I'm saying is now we explode that PowerPoint all the way around, so the students just move around.
No, you would always debrief,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
With anything that's likely to be possibly upsetting to some students, because we, as much as we know our students in T levels, we know our students well because we teach them a lot, but there are still elements of their life that we don't know. So it is really important that you debrief, and after anything that's, maybe a little bit upsetting.
There's elements of neglect and safeguarding, obviously, because they might have gone through that themselves.
Yeah.
So usually, obviously with lessons, you forewarn students what the objects of the lesson are going to be, what you're going to be talking about.